Hi everyone, I'm Any New Province, and this week we're kicking off Guilds of Ravnica season by finding out if Maximize Velocity is possibly Pauper playable. Maximize Velocity is the first of many exciting commons from Guilds of Ravnica that I can't wait to try out for this series. It costs 1 red mana for a sorcery that gives target creature +1/+1 and haste until end of turn, but the most exciting part about Maximize Velocity is the new mechanic, Jumpstart. Jumpstart says you may cast this card from your graveyard by discarding a card in addition to paying its other costs, then exile this card. This cool new mechanic that resembles Flashback obviously goes well in a deck that wants to cast tons of instant and sorcery spells because you get an extra activation by casting it back out of your graveyard. That's why I've decided to maximize Velocity's utility by trying it out in a mono red Kiln Fiend shell that I'm calling Jump Fiend. Before I get into the deck tech, I just want to let you know you can like the video or subscribe to the channel down below. I'd really appreciate it. It's a great way to let me know you've enjoyed everything, and it really encourages me to keep making great Pauper content. Alright, let's get into Jump Fiend. The creature that pairs best with Maximize Velocity is our first threat, Kiln Fiend. It costs 1 and a red for a 1/2 elemental beast that says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Kiln Fiend gets +3/+0 until end of turn. Maximize Velocity adds +6/+0 to Kiln Fiend's power when you're trying to attack for lethal, but more than that, it also gives you an element of surprise. If your opponent is on an interactive deck, you can wait until they tap out, get a hasty Kiln Fiend, and win the game with it. We're not just using the element of surprise to win the game though, we're trying to win the game as early as possible no matter what it takes, and this next creature helps a lot with that. It even enables turn 2 kills. This is Immolating Soul Eater. It costs 2 generic mana for a 1/1 artifact creature Hound. You can pay 1 for Rexian red mana, which means you can pay red mana or 2 life to give Immolating Soul Eater +1/+0 until end of turn. There's really no feeling like paying 18 life to pump Immolating Soul Eater up to a 10/1 and then swinging at your opponent before giving it double strike. How are we going to give it double strike? Well, with Temur Battle Rage, of course. Whenever this spell resolves, you're almost definitely winning the game. Temur Battle Rage costs 1 and a red for an instant that gives target creature double strike until end of turn. It also has the Ferocious ability, which is really important. It says that creature also gains trample until end of turn if you control a creature with power 4 or greater. Having this Ferocious ability on Temur Battle Rage to give our creature trample is amazing. It's pretty easy to get their power up to 4 or greater, and it means our opponent having a blocker for our creature doesn't really matter. Kiln Fiend really doesn't ask much of you to become lethal after resolving a Temur Battle Rage on it, but I've included some pump spells to make sure we get there most of the time. Our first pump spell is Brute Force. It costs 1 red mana for an instant that gives target creature +3/+3 until end of turn. Brute Force is really interesting with Temur Battle Rage because all you have to cast is Brute Force and Temur Battle Rage on a Kiln Fiend to make it lethal. I've also included 1 copy of Renegade Tactics over more Brute Forces because sometimes we just have to dig towards another threat. Renegade Tactics costs 1 red mana for a sorcery that causes target creature to be unable to block this turn. Then you draw a card. We've also got 4 copies of Mutagenic Growth, another great enabler for winning in those first couple of turns of the game because it's technically free. Mutagenic Growth is an instant that costs 1 green Phyrexian mana, so we're always paying 2 life for this, and it gives target creature +2/+2 until end of turn. Because mono red isn't as good at churning through its deck as other colors, we've included some more threats just in case we have to go on a plan B beatdown plan. Our first alternative threat is another brand new Guilds of Ravnica common and a card I can't wait to try out. It's Piston Fist Cyclops, and it costs 1 and 2 hybrid Izzet mana. Piston Fist Cyclops is a 4/3 defender, which I know it sounds really bad for a deck that wants to attack, but that's because it has this second ability. As long as you cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn, Piston Fist Cyclops can attack as though it didn't have defender. A lot of mono red Kiln Fiend decks will run prowess creatures like Mage Ring Bully. I never felt very good resolving those creatures because you had to do so much more work to make them into a good threat. Piston Fist Cyclops doesn't ask very much of you, and it attacks for a ton. We also have 4 copies of Gitu Lava Runner, which costs 1 red mana for a 1/2 human wizard, and as long as there are 2 or more instant or sorcery cards in your graveyard, Gitu Lava Runner gets +1/+0 and has haste. There are so many free spells in our deck, it's not unreasonable for Gitu Lava Runner to come down and start attacking on turn 1. If Mutagenic Growth was one of those free spells you cast, it's attacking for 4, maybe even sometimes 6. I like Gitu Lava Runner over the other prowess creatures because of how proactive it is. This thing starts pressuring your opponent as soon as turn 1, and it's just another creature they have to answer while they're not answering your Kiln Fiend or Immolating Soul Eater. Like I said earlier, red isn't as good at churning through its deck as other colors, so we've included some card filtering to make sure that we can find our threats on time. Our first piece of card filtering is Gitaxian Probe. It costs 1 blue for Phyrexian mana, which means we'll always be paying 2 life for this. It allows you to look at target player's hand and then draw a card. I mentioned that winning by surprise is kind of important for a deck like this. That's why Gitaxian Probe is so powerful here. You get perfect information about what answers your opponent might have before you go all in on a single creature. We're also running 3 copies of Faithless Looting, which costs 1 red for a sorcery that allows you to draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. You can flash it back out of your graveyard by paying 2 and a red. Faithless Looting synergizes so well with the Jumpstart mechanic. We can turn those Jumpstart cards into new cards in our hand and then cast them out of our graveyard when the time is right. Even though we're not trying to be super proactive about our opponent's creatures, we are running a tiny bit of interaction in 3 copies of Gutshot. Gutshot costs 1 Phyrexian red mana, and hey, we don't have to pay 2 life for this one every time. It's an instant that deals 1 damage to any target. Gutshot is really good insurance against things like Tireless Tribe and Spell Stutter Sprite, but more than that, it's just a great efficient damage spell that we can send at our opponent's face on a combo turn. Our last non-land card is Simian Spirit Guide. While Kiln Fiends and Immolating Soul Eaters are going to get to do the killing on turn 2, Simian Spirit Guide is the star that allows that to happen. Simian Spirit Guide costs 2 and a red for a 2/2 Ape Spirit. You can exile it from your hand to add 1 red mana to your mana pool. Of course, it feels amazing to be able to kill your opponent on turn 2 by accelerating out a creature on turn 1. Still, I'm happy Simian Spirit Guide is a creature. If our opponent has answered our board for the entire game, top decking one of these might give us the only threat we need to close things out. Alright, let's have a look at this mana base. Nice and simple, just 17 basic mountains. All of them are coming in untapped, allowing us to do our crazy things on turn 1 and turn 2, and there isn't too many of them to clog up our hand as the game goes long. Okay, let's have a look at this sideboard. First, we have 3 copies of Electrickery for wrathing the board of X1s. We have 2 copies of Flame Slash for when our gut shots just won't do the trick. We have 2 copies of Flaring Pain to fight those moments pieces. We have a copy of Apostle's Blessing for all of our opponent's targeted removal. We have 2 copies of Dead and Gone for answering Gurmag Anglers or just for bringing in more removal. We have 2 copies of Molten Rain for blowing up our opponent's Karuz and Tron lands, and we have 3 copies of Smash to Smithereens to blow up artifacts in a proactive way. And there you have it, mono red Jump Fiend. We're going to take this deck into a league at twitch.tv/AnyNewProvince this Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Atlantic time. We're there every Tuesday night playing possibly Pauper playable decks. Before I go, I just want to remind you that you can like the video or subscribe to the channel down below. I'd seriously appreciate it. It's a great way to let me know you've enjoyed everything, and it really encourages me to keep making great Pauper content. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this deck tech, and hopefully I'll see you on Tuesday night.